Do you want to go from this to something more like this? All you need is a newborn baby, and you too will become an absolute god gamer at Sideswipe. But seriously, this video is designed for me. Yes, believe it or not, this video is designed for me. It's designed for anyone that is coming to Sideswipe with zero Rocket League experience, apart from playing casually with friends, and very, very little Sideswipe experience, apart from the few games that I played before I decided I actually wanted to play this game seriously. So what this video is designed to do is to take you from a fumbling idiot who can't hit the ball to save his life or her life, and turn you into someone that maybe is at least semi-competent and can think about how to approach the game, rather than just blindly throw your car at the ball and hope that it lands in the goal. That is what this particular video is all about, and that's what I hope it provides for some of you out there as well. It is not designed to turn you into pro. It's not going to replace the amazing channels like Moggs, who, by the way, a lot of what I've learned has been from his channel, which I'm going to link in the description below. He deserves way more subs than he's got. And you know, it's designed for people who just want to understand how to get a bit better at Sideswipe, and it's a step-by-step process, and the tips in this guide are designed to help you think about the game in a better way, but also provide some very tangible step-by-step processes to kind of get a little bit better. And once you learn from this video, you can then go on to more advanced guides and kind of figure out where you go from there. Now, this might seem a little contentious, but this is honestly the #1 thing that I think helped me improve the most when climbing through the lower ranks of this game. And it was improving my defense. I believe at lower levels, having a good defense is often better than having a good offense, especially because you can often rely on your opponents to make mistakes for you. A lot of times when I had the long kickoff, I would intentionally stay back just to try and get used to defending the ball. Even if I made a mistake and lost and scored a goal, like you just saw there, I very clearly should have lost a goal. I actually think that just improving my timing and how to intercept the ball, especially when it was around my own goal, made it much easier for me to then launch counterattacks and also understand how to defend against better attacks too. Just understanding how to defend and time against various balls that came my way meant that when a good attack was launched, I was much more readily able to intercept that ball and understand the timing of intercepting that ball too. And I just think in general as well, a lot of people at low levels really go all in on their offense, and they're not actually as clinical, especially at the silver and gold levels. They're not that clinical when looking to finish the ball. So I think that just by having a good defense, you are setting yourself up to allow the opponent to make mistakes, which you can then very easily capitalize on. I think 50 to 60% of all my goals in silver and gold came primarily through counter-attacking very poor offensive plays by my opponents. My offense is not that good. In fact, I'd say it's just as bad as a lot of the people that I encountered. There was so much to learn on offense in this game, but the defense, just mounting a good defense, is much easier to learn at lower levels, and it meant that there were just so many open goals for me to just slot a ball in, and that made it so much easier for me to score consistently against the lower levels of the game. You know, I think this is a good thing for a lot of people to remember. How many times have you launched an offense, completely whiffed the ball, and the enemy's just tapped it in for free in your goal? That is what this tip is supposed to be helping you with. And I think a lot of it just comes with practice. Hang back on the long kickoffs. Practice intercepting the ball using boosted jump, or just being in the goal and timing your jumps to ensure that you're getting it out of harm's way. And that will then improve those defensive skills the more games that you play. How many of you have had this fated experience where you're going for a kickoff and you absolutely flub it because you don't know what to do, you don't know the best way to go for the kickoff, you end up missing the ball, ending up on the wrong side of the pitch and losing a goal? If you're new to the game, you might feel like kickoffs can be a bit random. There is generally two ways that new players approach kickoffs. One is boost directly at the ball. The other is boost and then jump and try and get like either a boosted shot or try and just like roll into the ball. But these can be incredibly random, and depending on what your opponent does, that ball can go anywhere, and sometimes it's difficult to have that kind of control. So a popular start that you will see from a lot of people at the higher levels of gameplay is something called the pancake, which is where you boost towards the ball and you kind of just flip your car upwards, or you boost towards the ball and you just essentially are aiming to get the body of your car right in front of the ball like this. And it's a pretty popular way to approach kickoffs because, as I'll show you in just a moment, it is much easier to control what's going to happen to the ball. Most of the time, it's going to go straight up, or you're going to end up in a stalemate where the ball's locked on the floor because both of you are pancaking, and at that point, it's up to you to do something beyond that. What a lot of people do following pancaking is like this, and they either try and get a purple shot off to try and put some pressure in, or they'll just continuously roll at the ball. I wanted to show you now just some examples. When you do the pancake technique, especially if your opponent's doing it as well, a lot of the scenario outcomes will be that the ball either goes up in the air or it will get stuck between the two of you, and it comes down to a bit of a skill matchup about who can kind of recover and get that ball into a winning position more quickly than anything else. It is a very, very effective way to neutralize the randomness of the kickoffs and put more control over to you. And it also is a good way to counter some of the more aggressive kickoff takes, because by putting your body up in front of the ball, if they launch the ball at you, then you are much more likely to be able to block that and then regain control, regain position, or just even reset the pace of the game so that you can then get into a more stable spot. Another way to approach a kickoff is, again, actually something that I've adapted from Moggs. There is a move that's kind of like, he calls the wave and dip, but I just call it like a chip shot. Essentially, you're boosting, you jump, and then you point your direction arrow downwards so that you kind of just chip the ball. I actually approach kickoffs like that sometimes because it can catch people who use the pancake by surprise, or catch a suboptimal pancake off by surprise, because you're just boosting to try and chip the ball up like that. And actually, even on this level, which is the level that you'll run into in Platinum and above on solos, or at the level that you run into on duos, is actually you can chip the ball high enough so that you can set up for a goal as well. So that I actually don't mind that way of kicking off as well. Show you some examples now for some gameplay. Again, going for the chip shot can be a little risky, of course. There are things that definitely can ruin your day when it comes to using that particular kickoff technique. But it can be a way to try and get the ball over the top of a very low pancake, or try and take advantage of someone who is going for a lower approach to the kickoff. And I've actually found some success with it at like the sort of high gold ranks as well. I think, you know, it is a shot that can go a little bit more wrong than the very safe pancake, but it's nice to have an extra way of dealing with things in your arsenal. The other way to approach kickoffs, and this really only works when you are at the furthest part away from the ball, is going for a defensive start. You've seen it before in my defense tips. I will jump into the goal like this, or in doubles, a lot of the time I will hover here because you can just jump up and defend like that. But I'll be in the goal or around the goal, and it essentially forces the opponent to do something. Often the way that the opponents will counter that is they'll start really slow, and then they'll just try and like mount an attack against you. But it is another way to approach kickoffs. I'm not going to spend too long on this because the last point was about being defensive, but it is just a good way to launch pretty solid counter attacks, especially if the enemy's first attack on the kickoff is a little weak. And it's an easy way, in my opinion, to score some solid goals. And of course, one of the most important things is to vary how you approach kickoffs as well. If you make it a little too obvious to your opponent what you're going to do every time, if you're going to pancake or you're going to defend on every single long position, they might figure out ways in-game to counter you. So vary the way that you attack the ball from the kickoff to ensure you have the greatest chances of success. And this is a really important tip in my eyes, and it's something that took me a long time to get right, and it's actually still something that I'm looking to improve on now. Slowing down your gameplay. And Rocket League and Sideswipe are incredibly high action and fast paced, but that doesn't mean that you need to be at all times. Clearly there are points which require fast thinking, fast moving cars, and quick reactions. But I found more often than not, and this goes hand in hand with learning to be a bit more defensive as a player, that actually just slowing down your gameplay not only helps you manage and regulate your boost more effectively, which is something that I'm not going to cover in this video, but it is something that is very important to playing the game, but also makes you more, I would say, conscious about your shot selection and how you approach the ball in the air. Having patience and slowing down how you think and approach the ball, especially when it comes to aerial plays, really improves your chance of success. Take a step back, hang around that midfield area, and ensure that you're just being a bit more deliberate about how you choose to approach the ball. It means that you'll be a bit more conscious of specific decisions that you're making. It'll also mean that you make less mistakes, because what you're doing is essentially being more mindful about the shots that you want to take. So just be aware that being slower and approaching the ball in a more regulated way will lead to success more often than not. You can see in these clips, at some point in all of these clips, I've stopped my car for a moment to think about what the next move is going to be. And actually, there's something that I'll talk about a little bit later on. You can actually judge when you cannot be slow and fast based on how much boost and how many jumps that you've seen your opponent use. A lot of the times that you'll see me slow down is when I've already seen my opponent use a significant amount of boost, or have already used their aerial jumps, because I know that I have a bit more time to think about what I want to do. There are lots of ways to approach shooting in Rocket League. Obviously, just charging at the ball is a pretty solid way of shooting. Usually you're going to get, if you're underneath the ball, you're going to get a bit of a lift on it as well. There is obviously the double tap that you see people use. It's kind of like this. Kind of gives it a bit of front spin, and that can be used to lift the ball and kind of more effectively guide the ball into a goal. But when it comes to power shots, there are three main ones. And again, another Mogs video that is really good that I kind of learned a lot about these power shots from. I will link in the description. But essentially, the first one is the purple shot or the red shot, and that is where you're boosting, you jump, and then you hit the front of your front of the nose of the car directly into the ball. This is your bog standard shot. So the red shot is like your bog standard way of getting a bit of pace on the ball. It's a good way to kind of like direct aerial shots as well. So, you know, you might want to use it in the air if the ball, just try and get it into the air for a minute. If the ball goes into the air and you kind of want to direct an aerial shot, you can do it like that. And it's a good way to kind of like get a bit of pace on the ball in a variety of situations in a very easy way to control. So again, don't really need to talk too much about why this is useful. It is a very useful shot in general. And again, it's just a way of providing a bit of power on the ball to get it to where you want it to go. The next shot, and this is actually the shot that I find the most difficult to pull off in the game, it's kind of like the neutral jump shot or the purple shot. What you need to do to make this happen is you kind of need to be up like this, and then you click the jump button again without actually using your analog stick. You're basically doing a double jump on the ball. I find this shot the most difficult to pull off in practice, mainly because just getting the car aligned with the ball while it's moving, while this happens, is actually quite difficult to do. It is something that I do often off the back of a pancake start, just because it's a good way to like launch the ball when you're looking for a defensive shot like this. But essentially, it is more of a defensive shot. It's a good clearance shot. It's a really good defensive shot, as I said. You don't really commit your car. Like, unlike the red power shot, you're kind of committing your car, and if you can't follow up on it, like you're sometimes dead in the water while the enemy just clears it this way, and you're like, ah, crap, I'm now the other end of the field and the enemy's got the ball at my goal. The good thing about the purple power shot, or the sort of the double jump shot, is that it's a good way to like clear the ball from your side of the it's a good way to clear the ball from your side, and then you can kind of get back to this side of the pitch and then reset and go again. That's what I like about the purple shot. And again, it is much more of a defensive shot. It can also be used in some offensive situations, but I often find there are easier and safer ways to execute on a finish without having to like set up for the purple power shot. The final shot, power shot, is the gold power shot, which basically involves you getting the back of your car facing and then using the double boost. So you can do this by just immediately like jumping. So I'll show it without doing it first. Jumping, turning the analog stick the other way, and then jumping again. So like this. So it looks something like that when you actually do it. This shot is very difficult to pull off in practice. You know, it seems like a really cool shot because it's a very, very good way to like launch the ball across the pitch and then get back to your own goal. And it's a little bit more powerful than the purple power shot when used. But actually using it in practice, using it in midair, it's really difficult to do in game. And I haven't found many good uses for it other than being like kind of a defensive, again, you can see here, kind of a defensive way of like launching the ball up. There are some situations that I've used where you can use like the chip shot like this, and then you kind of like tilt your car over and use the gold shot to get it in the goal. Obviously not as complex as that. You should be tilting your car over and kind of launching it more directly into the goal. But again, I haven't found a great situation for it other than kind of like doing that. Sorry, I just thought I'd follow that one up. But you know, I think it's a really cool shot, and I think if you're very, very good at the game, you can probably master doing this shot more frequently than I am able to do. But like actually using it in game is really difficult, and for the most part, all I end up doing is kind of like faking out. Like right there, that was a good way of defensively clearing, and then you can obviously just follow it up. There are probably ways that you can use this shot more efficiently as a defensive clear than the purple power shot. I actually do find this shot easier to pull off than the purple power shot, because the purple power shot involves me taking my my hand off the left analog stick, which I'm just really bad at doing. But the gold power shot is just, again, turn your analog stick the other way and then boost. And again, it's quite powerful if you get it right. Maybe it's easier than I think it is to pull off. But it's a good way of like launching a shot, but then immediately recovering, right? It's a really good way of immediately recovering and then putting yourself back into position. So all the shots have different uses. The red power shot is just a simple drive forward power shot. Think of it like your standard power shot in football. You commit to the shot, your car commits to the shot, and it's supposed to be a way of driving home the goal or a clearing in a very easy way. Purple power shot, very defensive, keeps your car in place, allows you to recover easily. Gold power shot pushes your car backwards. Again, another defensive clear, but can be used in offensive situations. I find it very hard to use in a real situation outside of the training field, though, because to actually line up and get the purple shower shot to work, I end up doing that more often than not. Not that that's a bad thing, but again, it is a very interesting shot that is a little bit more difficult to use in practice. In fact, obviously, the most used shot that I use all the time is just the red power shot, but the gold power shot is very, very cool. And if you can actually use it in practice, I think, you know, can lead to some pretty interesting situations. I think practicing the gold power shot also teaches you a lot in patience, which kind of links back to my previous point where being patient and just kind of approaching the ball. Because what I'm going to show you now is not chipping the ball directly into the goal. Let's try and get it up into the air. Right, if I'm approaching this carefully, like that right there was like a really careful approach to the gold power shot, and you can see that it can be used in some situations like that. But you know, I might have just been better off launching that as a gold power, you know, a red power shot, for instance. But again, the gold power shot is pretty cool, and if you can master it, it can be used very effectively to maintain really good midfield position. Also, like reset defense if it goes wrong. In terms of like actually choosing your shot when playing a game, once you understand what all the shots do, you can then start to weave them into your gameplay and figure out how you want to use them to actually score goals. I think I'm not going to talk about like all the different types of shots that you can perform in terms of the setups, because there's a great video by Moggs again, and I really need to credit this guy. He's an amazing content creator. What you just saw a minute ago was something like a defensive roof clear into an offensive shot, which is again a really sort of advanced shot that you can pull off when trying to turn a defense into an offense. But once you kind of understand what all the shots do and like how to use them, you can not do what I just did on screen and actually start to weave them into your gameplay and make more effective use of them. And finally, my final tip: information is your friend. This is something that is quite simple, but will help you massively when it comes to decision making in game. Always keep an eye at how much your opponent is boosting, how many jumps they've used, and kind of like what they've got left in the tank to perform a maneuver with. This really helps you with sensing the urgency of how you need to approach a particular ball position. Let's say your opponent gets it into your half and they are hovering, looking to potentially convert it into something useful. You know, if they have already used their second jump, or they're really hovering with very little boost left on their cards, you know that you can be a little bit more I guess, relaxed about how you choose to make that defensive block. If you're looking at someone that's really only used their first jump and has a lot of boost left, you maybe need to be a bit more aggressive with how you choose to block that particular shot as well. Information is absolutely key to winning, especially in 1v1s where it's a little easier to track. If you're playing duels specifically, it is a lot easier to track that information. And I think that's really, really important to how you approach the game. Sometimes having the correct information in your head is half the battle in terms of approaching, selecting shots and making offensive plays. It's a really, really useful tool to have. I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. I hope this has been informational and educational for you. I will say that, again, I am still learning. I'm still growing as a player, and I intend to keep following these tips to do so. Channels like Mogs, who are already good at the game, are great to kind of learn the absolute sort of high tier stuff. But this was really aimed at people who were like me, who started, they felt useless, and they just wanted some simple ways to improve at the game. And that's kind of what this was for. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you soon. If you like the content, feel free to like and subscribe.